Alright, so for the past couple of years now, Resident Evil has been getting a massive resurgence in popularity. A large portion of it is through the newer first-person games like Resident Evil 7 Biohazard and Village. But it seems like Capcom has been taking more of a focus towards remaking the older classics for some time now as well. In 2019, we got the amazing Resident Evil 2 remake, and holy shit, this remake still holds near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love this game. It's one of my favorite games, I'm not gonna lie. The following year, in 2020, we got the remake of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which is the most disliked remake due to its 3-hour runtime and barely any side content. But in 2023, we got the remake of what many would call the best Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4. This new Resident Evil 4 remake, which had a more of a darker undertone as compared to the more cheesy GameCube version,
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off.
became an instant classic with so many people praising the different approach Capcom had with this game. The problem with the remake though, and this was a pretty big problem, was that upon release there was no mercenary mode or no Separate Ways DLC, and when the former was released in a free update, there was no inclusion or no mention of Ada Wong, which made many people believe that Separate Ways was just not going to be a thing. But then it was released only a couple days ago, and everything was right in the world. On September 21st of 2023, Capcom released the DLC for only $10 to play, as well as a free update to the already existing mercenary mode. And even though some people were put off by having this DLC be priced as opposed to the GameCube version being absolutely free, I can say for certain that $10 is just an absolute steal. Separate Ways showcases you, now playing as Ada Wong, working with Luis and working for Wesker to try and obtain the Las Plagas Amber, all while Leon Kennedy is off, I don't know, talking about bingo or whatever Leon does. Essentially, this DLC showcases what Ada was doing in the background, why she was there to meet with Leon, and what exactly happened in certain events throughout the base game. This DLC answers so many questions that I had when playing the base game, and it really tied everything together, all while making the more mysterious Luis and Ada have a more understandable and more of a respective motive behind what they do. So with that said, let's give you a brief rundown on the story, and then let's talk about the overall gameplay. Watch out because there will be a few spoilers here on out. So the game starts out with Luis being trapped, preparing to have the Plagas virus be inserted into his body, but instead of being, you know, scared, worried, anxious, anything like that, bro just, well, he just dances. After his amazing dance moves, goddamn, if I was a woman, I would be so over him. Ada saves Luis and attempts to escort him out of there. That's when the antagonist of this DLC, this, bug thing, I don't know what the hell this is, attacks and subsequently infects Ada. This is the head researcher of Ramon, a name that I cannot pronounce to save my life, but he's the guy who gave the insects the Plagas virus that you have to deal with in the castle part of the main game. He reminds me of Nemesis in the way that he slowly and methodically walks towards you to wait to attack you, and when he's ready, he pounces at you with this like mind warping powers, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Once beating him and once escaping, it becomes your goal to meet up with Luis to find a cure for the Plagas infection and to escape this hell-like town with the Amber for Wesker. As I said earlier, this all takes place as Leon is doing his Leon things, so you'll be able to witness him taking on the village, or you can hear him faintly in the background. In fact, what I thought to be really cool when I was playing this was that Ada was the one who rung the bell in the very first fight of the base game, just so she could save Leon. As well as, if you hang out by the church after the cutscene for some time, you can actually hear Ashley cry and yell for help in the church tower. It's just like little features like this that make this game so amazing. This type of stuff is apparent throughout the 7 different chapters. Like, you'll see the aftermath of that one bell tower falling over, or the aftermath of the giant Leon was facing in the castle. It's all so neat to re-explore everything and to see all the changes made in the environment. On top of the story and seeing everything Leon has done, it's very nice to see more in depth about Ada as a whole and where she really lies in terms of loyalty and morals. You really get more of a feel for her and how she's not a bad person after all, but more of a battle-scarred and standoffish person than anything. She used to be like Leon and how naive he once was in Resident Evil 2, but with everything that she's been through, she knows that everything and everyone doesn't last, and the only person that she needs to look out for is herself. Or at least that's what she thought. At the beginning of the game, all she wants to do is gather the amber so she can give it to Wesker and get paid, but the more she interacts with Luis and the more time she spends with Leon, the more she just kinda opens up. She starts to save Leon more often than you would think, especially at the point where she tells Luis to make the cure outright to save everyone first before getting the amber that would, you know, definitely destroy humanity if it was in the wrong hands. And it's just so nice to see her change and become more open towards the end of the game. Luis is also a character who gets more expanded upon in this DLC. In the base game, Luis was more of this mysterious person who, at face value, looked like he wanted to make right of the things that he did wrong. But at least to me, it always felt like he had some ulterior motive. Of course, we now know that he was working with Ada to get the amber, and that would have been absolutely horrible if the plan did go through. But we also know that he definitely wants to make right before his untimely demise by trying to make a cure for this Plagas virus. He shows much more passion and care than in the base game, and it made me enjoy the character so much more. Also, 10 out of 10 dancing skills. Bro should have been on Spain's Got Talent. Oh, and also, you get to see Wesker for the first time, I think like face to face, and he's just as mysterious and just as demanding as he used to be, so I fucking love Wesker. Gameplay wise, Separate Ways doesn't feel as repetitive as I once thought it would be. At first I thought this would just be like a copy and paste to the base game, but that's just not right at all. The DLC feels a lot more fast paced, even though the base game was very action oriented by itself. You get thrown into the combat almost instantaneously, as you don't need an introduction to how the combat or the Plagas virus works. In fact, I think you start out with a boss fight. You also get guns, items, and coins far quicker than when you did beforehand, and the addition of the grapple gun makes movement feel so much faster as well. This grapple gun is amazing, I'm not even gonna lie. It'll help you either jump to high ground or cross very large gaps with ease, making you feel like you're progressing through each and every area at a quick, steady pace, but it can also be used to melee staggered enemies. So now after you get a couple shots on whatever you're facing, instead of just running up on the enemy, you can now press a button and boom, there you go. You knock that Plagas virus to the ground. So with that, the combat feels so much more smooth. I also never had a problem with the grapple hook at all. I think the only thing that comes close would be my dumbass missing the grapple indicator when I was being chased by Mendez, which, you know, caused me to be killed, but hey, that's all on me. On top of the grapple hook, Ada also has a bionicle eye that lets her see footsteps from other people. This acts like a detective mode that Batman uses in the Arkham games, and although it was only used a couple of times throughout the DLC, I think it was only used like 2 or 3 times, it's a nice addition nonetheless, and it's a handy tool that'll help you progress through different puzzles. Now, let's talk about the bosses. As usual, Capcom created some pretty memorable and pretty entertaining bosses. Of course, we have this guy to talk about, but there's some other bosses that I thought were really fun to take on. I want to say just about every other chapter you take on a boss, with my favorite being the chapter 3 boss, where you take on the really big motherfucker that you and Luis burn alive in the pits of hell. As Ada, you need to prevent the giant from demolishing the one house that Leon and Luis stayed at to rendezvous, and to do so, you need to use your grappling tool to zip to the roofs of the farmhouse and to shoot its weak spot. The fun part though is when the giant can destroy any parts of the building that you're on, making the grappling and movement a must in this fight. It's really crazy that a boss that you fought, what, 3 different times in the base game, it can be still so fun to take on just by the arena that you are in. On top of that, the main antagonist that you take on that I briefly talked about, you fight him a couple of times. The first 2 times, the Bugman will walk slowly towards you, with his trick being that he blurs your vision while also sending out hallucinations that won't take damage but will definitely rip you to shreds at any moment. It's incredibly nerve-wracking to try to figure out which is actually him, as every single bullet that you shoot needs to hit him, or else you will be out of ammo and you will be screwed. His final form is a little less interesting though, as once his cloak comes out, he turns into what I like to call the Phase 1 Lobster Man, where he shoots out some poison mines and then does some basic attacks, and then his Phase 2 Wormy Man, where he tends to dig underground to try to surprise attack you. The final fight is good, not great in my opinion, and I do wish that they leaned on the hallucinations more with this character. Like, I think it would have been so badass if he acted kind of like Mr. X meets Joker from Arkham City, where he would just appear out of nowhere to walk towards you and to chase you, but he's not really there and you can't actually hit him. That would have been so cool and so terrifying. Apart from the newer bosses or arenas, the enemies stay the exact same. If you stay in the town, you'll deal with the villagers and the chainsaw people. The castle has the knights, the insects, the shaman, the blind dude. The island has the more militaristic enemies and the blob. There really isn't any new enemy. I'm not too much a fan of this, I'm not gonna lie. Apart from the regular enemies and the mutants that can sometime arise after killing them, all of the other enemies felt like a one-off. It felt like once you go to, let's say the castle, you're only gonna see the night enemies only once, and that's when you're getting the ingredients for the Plagas vaccine, and then never again. Or in the factory of the town, you come across the 2 chainsaw people, but once defeating them, you'll never see them again. I understand that this DLC isn't even half the runtime as the base game, so you'll be flying through each area like it was nothing, but still though, I wish that these special enemies didn't feel like mini bosses as opposed to something you would take on regularly beforehand. With that said though, the music for all the fights and really for any moment where music is needed is of course amazing. I love the soundtrack when playing the base game, and I still hold that opinion when playing the Separate Ways DLC. I mean, just take a listen to the song and tell me that you don't want to shoot an explosive crossbow at an infected Spanish guy. It's just great. I know a lot of people say it's a step up from the GameCube version, but seeing how I've never played that version, I don't have a definite answer on that. Anyways though, that's my overall opinion on the Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways DLC. All in all, I absolutely love this DLC. I 100% think it's worth the $10 to play it. It felt so good to come back to Resident Evil 4 with this DLC, and it made me want to replay the base game, so that's how you know that this DLC is just amazing and delivers its job. I didn't have many bad things to say about this game. There were no optimization issues, there were no bugs actually. I don't think I found one at all. And the only issue that I had was the enemies, and even then that was just an annoyance more than an actual issue. Wait, no, I forgot. In the first boss fight, Ada's dress gets cut, and then in the next chapter, it's fully repaired. 0 out of 10 game. I want my refund right now. Oh, and, fun fact before I end this video, this DLC is actually longer than the entirety of Resident Evil 3 Remake. I just thought you all should know that. But what do you all think of the Separate Ways DLC? Did you all enjoy it? Hate it? Leave it down in the comments below. But other than that, I'm ending this video here. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you guys like this video, maybe hit that like button and subscribe, maybe comment down below, maybe give me that social security number. But other than that, I will see you all in another video. Bye for now.